also doing something special on the floor. Stephen Curry.
That is for damn sure.
You know, 19th, his 19th Western Conference Player of the Week award that he was awarded Monday. And look, he took a step back. He took a back seat, I should say, Monday to Jordan Poole, who had a season high 36 points. But today against Chris Paul, we always love these matchups against Chris Paul. Stephen Curry, Chris Paul on the same floor together, and it feels like we're getting down to the nitty-gritty of it when it comes to these matchups with Chris Paul. Who knows how long Chris Paul has to go? We know Steph Curry is 34, Chris Paul about to be 38 years old, slowing down a little bit, not having the flashiest year, but you know, whenever you get those two guys on the court, you're going to get high-level basketball, and people are going to be locked in. So that backcourt of Devin Booker, Chris Paul against Klay Thompson and Stephen Curry, and we know the last time Klay Thompson went down there, he was running off the floor or walking off the floor and said, I got 4 of these. I got 4 of these after he was ejected for the first time in his career.
You know, everybody brings up Chris Paul all the time as kind of like, because the position, you know, obviously point guard. And I also think his national commercial appeal for a long, long time. He was one of the heads of whatever NBA marketing program was out there. I just don't view him as a rival per se to Steph Curry. And I know at one point he was.
You just don't see him as a rival anymore. He's averaging 9.5 points per game this season.
That's kind of wild.
That's wild,
I didn't know that.
9.5 points per game this year. He's questionable. He's shooting 36.8% from the floor and 27 from three. But we know the last time Chris Paul played the Warriors, he bombed 4 threes.
I'm using this person. I believe Dan Marino is better at what he did than what Chris Paul is at what he does. Even though Chris Paul's fantastic, I mean, I think Marino's one of the great players of all time. But we don't put him in the same category as Joe Montana, do we?
We don't.
Right?
We don't.
And it's not considered a rivalry at all, really.
Yeah, I mean, they met in one Super Bowl.
And so Steph and Chris Paul have only met in the Western Conference Finals one time?
Yeah, I would say
Rockets.
I would say Dan Marino was probably more of a rival with Jim Kelly because they both played the AFC East. Okay. Buffalo against Miami.
But is Jim Kelly a rival to Joe Montana at any point?
No, of course not. They're AFC East.
There's like levels to it, right? You know what I'm saying? And I just look at Steph Curry and I'm like, his rival, and this is just my brain, is LeBron James. And that's where he's at. And I'm sure LeBron stands would say Steph is below him. Right. But you can't talk about the history of the NBA without those two colliding however many times in the finals.
No doubt. That's something. I could see that. If we would have got that matchup last year, in the Western Conference Finals, maybe it heightens up the rivalry because then you would have had the Clippers playing the Warriors, and Chris Paul, of course, got away with a foul in one of those series, and they beat him in 7. And then, of course, he goes to the Rockets, and he gets hurt in the last 2 games. The woulda, coulda, shoulda, all that stuff. So that's a good point. They've played more so than, say, Dan Marino and then Joe Montana and then Jim Kelly and Joe Montana. That's why I think Jim Kelly, Dan Marino in the same conference or same division.
No, I like that one.
You know, Jim Kelly did maybe Boomer Esiason in the same conference or whatnot. But Chris Paul is to see him play. And I was watching a little bit of the Miami game the other night, and I'm just like, man, this guy looks, as my computer audio's on, this guy looks like he's about through and played at an elite level. Now, again, you don't want to leave him wide open because he'll hit the open shot, but 27% from 3. Now, on the flip side, we got Klay Thompson. And I'm eager to hear what Eddie Johnson says about Klay Thompson and what he's seen from Klay Thompson because, unfortunately, with James Wiseman now going down to Santa Cruz, he's going to be watching the game from Santa Cruz. A lot of spotlight's going to be on Klay Thompson tonight after what Jordan Poole did on Monday, albeit it was against the San Antonio Spurs. Klay Thompson's going to have a lot of eyes on him tonight to see if he can shake out of this slump, as well as going against Devin Booker after what happened last time these two teams faced.
Do you look back at the Devin Booker explosion emotionally from Klay Thompson in a different light now that you've kind of seen him struggle for the last couple of weeks?
A little bit.
What do you mean by that?
Just because he knows that he doesn't have it right now. He's slumping right now, and he's fighting it. And remember that game against Phoenix? He could have hit the backside of the bar. What did he go in that game? I'll pull it up right here. And he was battling defensively. He was 1 of 8 from the floor and 0 of 5 from the 3-point line. At that point, he got kicked out in 19 minutes. And he was scuffling. And heck, he's still sort of scuffling, even though he's a lot better than he was back then when they played Phoenix the first time around, the 5th game of the season or 4th game of the season. Maybe he was kind of telling everybody that he's a little frustrated mentally with where he's at with his body, with where he's at with his game, and how quickly it's not coming together. So I think it's fair to say, could kind of see him, kind of just having an outburst. It was very uncharacteristic of Klay Thompson to do what he did that game in Phoenix.
I agree. When I look at Klay's body of work as a Warrior, I do believe he's evolved as a person. So I don't want to hold him hey, who you are at 25 is who you'll be at 32. That's none of us are that way.
Right.
We all evolve or devolve depending on who you are. I kind of underrated how emotional Klay Thompson is. Right. I think I viewed him as stoic,
right, and
nothing gets to him and everything. And maybe it's all the time away, and maybe it's maturation process as an individual, maybe coming into your own psychologically, however you want to say it. I underestimated how emotional he is, and I'm looking back at that Devin Booker, and I'm not saying that I'm worried or paranoid or anything. I just think that he needs to just figure out how to be the best version of himself for now.
Right.
Stop trying to go back to old Klay or whatever. Right. You're who you are. Is Steph old Steph or is Steph just Steph?
Steph's just Steph.
His game's evolved.
Right.
Think of how much his game's evolved over the years. I look back at some of the stuff from 2016, 2015. He just looks physically different. He plays different, right? And so, now there are some similarities, no doubt about it. So I look at someone like Klay Thompson, and I say, stop looking back. Let's look forward. That's what my suggestion to him would be. Not that he's asking for Joe Shasky's advice, but I'd be like, dude, worry about the now, worry about what you can do moving forward, and make the best of the situation, and stop worrying about your hierarchy or your place in the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's been very odd to hear him clap back at Charles Barkley. And, I've heard from some people that he was really hot on that Charles Barkley stuff. And some people, it's like, Klay, don't worry about it. And it's like, oh, no, he shouldn't be saying this and saying that. So it's kind of gotten to him a little bit. Mentally, he's got to get right. Mentally, just play the game. Just play the game and play fast. And then the other storyline here is about James Wiseman. Tim Kawakami in The Athletic wrote a damn good article on James Wiseman. And look, we've discussed this a couple weeks ago, that if the Warriors were hovering around 500 nearing the trade deadline, they may have to make moves. Well, they may have to make moves earlier than the trade deadline. They may have to make moves in January. And I know where you sit here when it comes to trading a youngster for an expiring contract because you want the future to be bright. But you know what? It's the same kind of theory we apply to the 49ers. It's like, we got to win now. Got to win now. So damn those picks. Go get a playmaker in Christian McCaffrey. And I get it. He's not an expiring contract. You got control of him. But it's the same thing with the Giants. When they're in a race and we're sitting there when they win 107 games, it's like, you better go get Chris Bryant. And we want more. Screw the damn prospects. And they went out to go get Chris Bryant to try to win now. The Warriors are in that position. You never know when a window's going to open back up. And when you have an all-time great like Stephen Curry, there is added pressure, of course, to build around him and make sure you maximize that championship core. So when I watched the Sacramento Kings last night and they're rolling against Brooklyn, they drop 153, and I'm like, damn, the Kings are a fun watch. Like I told you, man, they're starting to believe in what Mike Brown is preaching them. And I look at James Wiseman going on to Santa Cruz, and, there may be a situation to where he's just not a good fit here. And you look around the league, can you get help? Can you get somebody to be a 7th or 8th man and give you 15, 20 minutes off the bench? Or at least get you through the regular season and then you play the matchups in the playoffs? You may have to bite the bullet and say, you know what? It just didn't work out with the number 2 overall pick from the 2020 NBA draft, and we got to go out there and get help now. And whether it's for the season, I can't worry about next season. I can't worry about the year after. I can't worry about the year after that. I got to worry about, I got Stephen Curry right now, and I need to maximize his prime. And I need to maximize his championship pedigree that he has. And, because when you get to the playoffs with a guy like that, you're going for number 5. That's what it's about. It's not about 2027, 2026, 2025. That is great to think about, right? Oh, man, Kuminga's going to be a star then, right? You got to maximize Stephen Curry now, Shasky. You may have to make some moves here.
I view this in a very unemotional way, and it's very simple to me. There's a supply and demand, and then there's assets and how to maximize your assets. I look at James Wiseman right now as, yes, it's sunken cost to some degree, right? You've invested a second overall pick in him. He's giving you basically nothing. I mean, if we're just being honest, basically nothing. Let's survey the land. How many true difference makers as an 8-9 guy that you're referencing off the bench are available at a $9 million price tag? Now, everyone's going to point to Gary Payton Jr. makes slightly less than James Wiseman. I don't even know if Portland's given up on him right now. The
No.
other factor that I've been thinking a lot about when it comes to Gary Payton Jr., and everybody throws this out there. They go, well, boy, they could really use a perimeter defender. Well, right now, last year they had an opportunity to play Gary Payton Jr. a lot more than they would have because Klay didn't come back until January. So there was a lot of inventory where he got opportunities to play. Klay didn't play back-to-backs. When I look at what they've got going now, it's a little more loaded backcourt because of the situation. Can you still find playing time for him? Absolutely. But as I survey the land and I say to myself, am I maximizing whatever trade and bringing someone in here? Is it actually going to make a difference? And that's where I have to find out exactly what you're getting in return before I can even entertain those kinds of offers. I'm with you on you got to maximize it now. I understand that. I am not clinging to this Wiseman's going to be a superstar or change the organization. That's Steph Curry. Those are unicorns. Those are comets. They're once in a blue moon. But to sit here and say the Warriors are 9 minutes of Miles Turner away from being one of the top 3 seeds, I find that to be a fallacy.
So you do need help, though.
Oh,
you got the
I think they're 2 moves away. Bonte, if I'm being honest with you, right now, I think that they're not one. To me, they need 2 different players off the bench.
I know we ripped Jakob Poeltl yesterday. And I actually watched him last night against Portland. And Nurkic's not a good defender. But I thought back to what Kawakami wrote in this piece about what Andrew Bogut said.
It's hard as hell to play center for the Warriors.
It's hard as hell to play center for the Warriors. And you think about what they've done to win these championships. Bogut, rugged, great screen setter, physical. Zaza Pachulia, rugged, great screen setter, physical. David West, rugged, great screen setter, physical. You look at Looney last year, same thing, rugged, physical, great screen setter. Wiseman is none of those things right now.
No.
He's none of those things right now.
In fact, I would say he's the exact opposite. Passive. Unaware, can't step in front of people, not great hands, low IQ, basketball-wise.
I have to admit, Jakob Poeltl excels at screen setting, being physical, and being rugged. And you can laugh all you want to, but I watched him last night, just open mind. Yeah. Open mind. Take the name away, because I remember he played with DeLon Wright at Utah, and we know how close we are to DeLon Wright, Darrell's little brother. Jakob Poeltl sets good screens. He's physical, and he's rugged. He makes $9 million. Expiring contract. It's a name you have to consider. It's a player you may have to consider. And you know what? When you play in the San Antonio system, you got to have IQ, right, Shasky?
Well, absolutely. Although that team that I saw fielded the other night, we've extended them beyond the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah,
it's over for Pop.
It's
this thing that he wants to leave the organization in a better place. No, you're leaving it in a scandal, and you've been condescending for 2 decades.
All my whole thing is you may have to find something for James Wiseman, because that was a player they were counting on. And if Jermichael Green can't cut it, and if Kuminga's inconsistent, you need a player who's consistent. And right now, Jakob Poeltl. He's consistent for the San Antonio Spurs. And if you add him to a team with this much talent, he may look a lot better. I'm kind of warming up to the Poeltl stuff.
Okay.
I'm warming up to it. So it's a lot of interesting things going on here. We're going to talk some dubs. 888-957-9570. Is it worth it to trade James Wiseman for a guy like Jakob Poeltl? We can throw some names out there. Throw some bigs out there. What is the solution here for James Wiseman? Also, a big day for Klay. What are you watching for Klay Thompson? Because that starting question with Jordan Poole is not going anywhere either.